Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing today? Well, good morning, nobody just yet because nobody's on but me. Um, Riding solo today. Kenneth had training today, so I don't even know if he's listening in on it today. And I'm probably not going to be on here that long. I just had a couple of things that were on my mind that I wanted to speak about. Um, Wrote them down actually. One of them was that kind of triggered me was I had to take a lift yesterday, um, and it happened to get picked up by a young woman. Is anybody younger than 15 years younger than me is a young woman to me. And she just moved into the neighborhood, and we struck up a conversation. And one of the things she was saying was she just moved in, told me what she moved into, and said, but lately she's been she's in a condo that overlooks. We have two train stations in our neighborhood, which makes it probably the most valuable neighborhood in the city right now in terms of what the potential is. Two train stations within a mile of each other. And she was saying that her condo overlooked Ashby, and the stuff that she's seen makes her question her decision about moving into the neighborhood, because of some of the violence she's seen at the Brown and Ashby Street train station. Now, mind you, for those of you who don't know, I live in a neighborhood that houses the Atlanta University Center, the largest consortium of HBCUs in one place in the country. I live right next to MLK. I live next to the Herndon House. I live in a predominantly Black neighborhood that has the six Black educational institutions. And she was just saying that people have told her, hey, don't worry about it, just get home and get inside your gate. She was thinking about selling. I was like, whatever you do, don't sell that house. But she's like, it's just an uneasy feeling. And one of the things I said to her, I said, are you trying to say that you just don't feel safe? And she said, that's exactly what I'm feeling. I don't feel safe. And I had a visceral reaction to it because she was right. She doesn't feel safe. And I don't think that people, let me, because I can go off on tangents here. I don't think people understand that you can really have no economic upward mobility in a neighborhood if safety is not the first issue. And this neighborhood right next to the city of Atlanta, this neighborhood that's going to be right next to the FIFA World Cup, has a narrative, sometimes unfair, sometimes fair, that it's not safe. And any neighborhood that doesn't feel safe will never get economic prosperity because people are not going to come if they don't feel safe. My point being, I know Kenneth sometimes probably gets a little uneasy because he thinks I'm on the case of Black men. And I think he thinks I'm sometimes being anti-Black men, and I'm not being anti-Black men. I believe in African-American men. And I believe that they have the potential to do great things. I'm a amateur historian, and every movement that we've gotten into, we've made a difference. I tell people we move the needle. But at some point, we're going to have an honest conversation about, excuse me, folks, making our community safe. Police aren't going to do it. Even African American police officers, I got quite a few of them in my neighborhood, get tired of and get bombarded with what they think is people that just won't learn. And I'm telling you, I've talked to them. I say I have private conversations with them, and they're African American police officers. And you got good and you got bad ones, but most of them, for the most part, really, really want to do their best to serve the public. But the rest of us, well-intentioned Black men, either we don't have the will or we've gotten so jaded, we've given up that we won't make our neighborhood safe. We aren't doing what it takes to make our neighborhood safe. And again, nobody's going to come save us, folks. Nobody's going to is going to, no matter how you might feel about it, and this cognitive dissonance as if they are is crazy. I'm watching some stuff that comes from my hometown, Augusta. This guy, I don't agree with anything he says, named Brian Green, and some of the stuff that's going on in Augusta. And it's like, this makes absolutely no sense. The people will do what you let them do, even in your own community. And this singular fashion, this singular part about the American culture has not served us really, really well. Because people don't feel safe when they come into my neighborhood. We still have this narrative, even though we're trying to change the narrative. But when you have, and I'm not saying because I know more people come here and go, well, we're not shooting up schools. And you're right, we're not doing this. You're absolutely right. But that doesn't take away the narrative that people don't feel safe in our neighborhoods. I literally spoke with somebody who's from Memphis. I was down at the park last week with my grandkids. And there was a lot of people down there. And I went down there. Whenever I go down there with the grandkids, if it's trash, I pick up. And I literally was down there picking up. And, it's always strange, sometimes strange to people to see somebody coming and picking up the trash if they don't have a City of Atlanta uniform on. And so when I sat down on the bench to watch my grandkids play, a gentleman just came over and started talking to me. And said, "Can I sit down?" And I said, "Yes." And we just started talking. And he was like, "I saw you picking up trash. I just want to know who you were." I told him, I was like, "Well, yeah, I live in the neighborhood. I'm on the neighborhood planning committee." And we just got to talking, and he started saying that he was from Memphis. And he was just talking about us and our culture in Memphis. He was a college educated guy. And he said, "I had to leave Memphis." He said, "It's just gotten so bad. It's just the stuff we do to one another." And we don't want to seem to have this blunt conversation about not who's responsible, because we always know where the responsibility lies, how we got to where we are. We all know that. We all know the history. I don't have to regurgitate that shit to you. We all know the history. But at the end of the day, nobody is really going to come and save us but men of goodwill. Men who set the rules in the neighborhood about what you can and can't do in the neighborhood. I always try to give these little bits and pieces from books that I read. And this book, if you've never read it, it's called Last Man Standing, the story of Geronimo Pratt. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And if you don't know Geronimo Pratt, he was a community activist from Louisiana who went out to LA. He was Johnny Cochran's first big client, and he got railroaded for a murder of a lady at a tennis court. And if you knew his background, you'd be like, him? Y'all railroaded him, but he was such a threat to people because he had this unbelievable ability to bring people together. And he was just talking about his neighborhood growing up in this small town, Louisiana, how his father was a member of this 4-man council in his neighborhood. His father was a junk man, is what he talked about. But he was a member of this 4-man council in his community that basically laid down the rules for how you were going to act and respond in this community. He didn't say he was perfect, but he said one of the things he admired about his father, if I remember correctly, was that they laid down the rules that the sheriff of the bigger parish would never come in to that neighborhood and just arrest people. He would always go to this parish, because he realized that if he went in, it was going to start a whole conflict that he was like, it wasn't worth it. They were policing their own neighborhoods. And so if they needed a suspect out of that neighborhood, the council would say, "Okay, we'll go get him." And then they would have men, because back then, people still got lynched. They would have men escort him down to the jail to make sure he got down safely and he got as fair as trial as he possibly could get. But my point being, they made the rules for that neighborhood. They made the rules, and it was just a bunch of men of goodwill. And another story out of Louisiana is I always tell people, me and Marion talk about this all the time, is the Deacons of Defense. There's nothing radical. It's funny that I've gotten to this point in my life. There's nothing radical about you making a decision to protect your neighborhoods. Because this singular thing that we're doing, unless y'all could tell me differently, is it working? Like in the first 6 months, this thing that we're doing, is it working? I've heard people say, well, we're doing stuff in secret, we're strategizing in secret. And I'm going, well, shit, I wish somebody let me in on a secret. Because when I have young ladies saying just visceral reaction, I just don't feel safe, I'm thinking about moving. And she was doing lifts. She was in between, she had lost her job and she got another job. She was doing lifts. She brought her own house. So she's thinking about moving because she just doesn't feel safe in this neighborhood. And I honestly believe with all my heart, until we as men of goodwill make it a priority to make African American women feel safe, wherever they go in the African American community, they're protected by African American men. Our problems will never be solved. Our problems will never be solved. If the person who brings in life in our community doesn't feel safe, and they're under constant stress and PTSD, and we keep making excuses for why we can't make them safe. We talk about their attitude. We talk about this. Most women in my lifetime respect people that want to be safe. Damn it! What just happened?